We're back. Hello, everyone. Welcome into Happy Hour. My name's Trey Lyle, 1/3 of your hosting trio. Joining me as they do every week, Dalton Hopkins at Pit Lane CPT. Of course, Michael Massie at M_Massie22. And joining us this week from the Motor Racing Network and from NBC Sports. He just got off of, unfortunately, being near Dalton Hopkins for 24 hours straight in a confined area. Well, it's Daytona, but the Daytona Rolex 24. Chris Wilner from the Motor Racing Network. Chris, thanks so much for joining us this week. And how was that experience like doing the Rolex 24 from Pit Road?
Yeah, thanks guys for having me. It was a blast. It was unlike anything I've ever experienced as far as broadcasting is concerned. When you think about endurance sports car racing and you watch from afar, which I had for many years before, and you think, man, like how do these guys do it where they stay up or run on little sleep, and all of a sudden I'm thrown into the fire and having to do it myself. A lot of caffeine was involved, but that was a blast. A lot of good storylines. We saw a great race. I didn't see Dalton at all. I'm surprised, actually, throughout the course of 24 hours. But nonetheless, it was fun, and it was a good broadcast and a good way to kick off the year.
Sounds to me like Dalton was just pretending to be there.
Yeah, all those interviews or whatever. That was just
Phil Alloway.
Yeah, that was Phil. Yeah, he's so personable. No, I ran into you. I saw you on pit road a couple times, but you were doing a much more important job than I was. But I do remember seeing you.
I was trying to play catch up because the hardest part is, especially like when my shift would be over, is trying to keep tabs on your drivers while you're also trying to sleep or get rest or eat. So it's like you probably saw me when I had no idea what was going on. I'm trying to figure out all the different storylines. So I apologize if I snuffed you at any moment, but it wasn't intentional.
No, I think that makes two of us because both of us were trying to wrap our heads around trying to get stories out of how many drivers was it? Like up in the 200s, I think. So
230, and I read every single name during driver intros.
Holy cow!
How much sleep did you get during the race?
So luckily this year, NBC had the pit road reporters and the Peacock pit box go dark between midnight and 6 a.m. So it was only the booth, and it was kind of a skeleton crew. So it was nice that by the time my shift was over around midnight, got back to the hotel, probably slept 3 hours, and then woke up thinking I was going to miss being back on air. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute, you got a few hours. So it was nice to get back in the swing of things and then, get started at 6 a.m. So slept more than I thought I would, although 3 hours really doesn't matter because your adrenaline is just going the whole time.
Hey, I ran on like 2 hours of sleep Saturday night, but that was because Luka Doncic got traded to the Lakers and I just couldn't sleep. But
yeah, how about that? A lot of people in Dallas didn't sleep, that's for sure.
That's a whole different thing. All right, well, let's get into this. So as always, sit back, relax, crack open that cold one, unless you're driving, of course, because here at Front Stretch, we ask you to please drive responsibly. But a place where, and I know you want to talk about this, Chris, I think a lot of cold ones were shared. A lot of number ones were shared. We're at the Clash this past weekend, and I know you wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, no, I just, it's still fresh in my mind having, a couple of days ago now and really just getting to experience Bowman Gray for the first time. I don't know if you folks have ever gone. I've never been to the stadium once after living in Charlotte now for almost 6 years. So probably shame on me, but it's definitely ignited a passion to go back. But yeah, I think if you took the Clash as a whole, I thought we were treated to probably one of the best clashes we've had probably in the last several years. When you just look at the fan experience, the atmosphere, the electricity, the racing. Yeah, okay, there were some times it got a little bit testy and it probably pushed some boundaries a little bit, but it's also Bowman Gray Stadium, and that's what we've been accustomed to seeing. But I just thought it was a home run for NASCAR, and it kind of sparked my thinking of, okay, we've done the LA Coliseum for 3 years. We've started to branch out, of course, in the regular season, going to places like Mexico and Chicago. What happened to the Clash now? Do we try to stick to this mold of bridging the historical elements of NASCAR, kind of like we did with Bowman Gray, where I haven't been there in 50 some years, and now we're going to kind of bring it back to life. And do we do that somewhere else? Do we highlight the short track racing? So kind of the first thing I want to discuss with you guys is, do you like the fact that we're connecting this historical relevance with, NASCAR of past and present and maybe future? And if so, where do we take it from here? Do we keep it on the short tracks, or do we maybe go international? There's a lot that could probably be really discussed on this element, but I'll open it up to Dalton. You go first. What do you think about the future of what we have in the Clash?
Yeah, I think over the last 48 hours, if you opened up any kind of article that has to do with NASCAR, you've heard some kind of opinion or some kind of fact about how great Bowman Gray was. I myself wrote one on Sunday night, and then I edited quite a few last night as well that came out in frontstretch.com. And I've seen a lot of takes. I've seen a lot of different arguments, and I think they're all very reasonable. But my own personal argument is, why on God's green earth would we leave Bowman Gray? I do not think this was such a big success. And I think Amy Henderson, she put out a Holding a Pretty Wheel article last night, or her column Holding a Pretty Wheel last night. And I read it, and I thought she articulated her point very well. And that is, the last 3 years we went to the LA Coliseum, but the only reason we did that was to capture a market, the biggest market in the United States. Makes sense, right? I think that made sense. The first year we went there was I thought it was a pretty big success. But the thing is, though, is that we were putting on a show. We weren't really doing it for historical reasons. We weren't doing it for the sake of connecting to race fans. We were doing it to grab the attention of that audience in Los Angeles. But we go to Bowman Gray, and yes, there's less seats, but those seats were packed, and they were packed full of race fans there for the sake of being race fans. They're there every week. They love racing. That is their sport. That is their culture, and they know racing very well. They're intelligent when it comes to stock car racing. So I feel like what you got was a short track. I don't want to say mayhem. It wasn't the final race wasn't exactly mayhem. The heats and the qualifying race were, but you had a short track race that was put on a great show, and you had a very passionate fan base behind it. And I believe and I put this out in my Thinking Out Loud article, I believe that you finally had a combination of fans, drivers, and media, and everyone else in the industry who all agreed this was a fantastic event. Why would we move it anywhere else? And last thing, I'll pass it on to Massie, but the last thing I do want to say is, why would we move it to an international market? We're already going to Mexico this year. If you want to do an international race, that's your slot right there.
Yeah, that's very good points indeed. And I'll say first off that, to the segment that's like, oh, I want the Clash at Daytona. I saw on Tubi the other night, the NASCAR channel, which is pretty good. You should check it out. But they were showing the 1995 Clash at Daytona. I was watching it, and at the end of the race, nobody's getting a run, and it's like Dale Earnhardt just wins it going away. And I'm thinking that was so boring. And it made me remember that the Clashes at Daytona, most of the time, they weren't that good. So I mean, either they'd be just boring or they'd be a wreck fest. There was no middle ground. So I think that is dead. Don't go back there. As far as the international versus Bowman Gray thing, I think the thing about that slot 2 weeks before the season actually starts is that's the slot where you could go overseas, because middle of the season, only one off week all year. It's going to be really hard to coordinate an international race other than Mexico, Canada, in that time period. So I think that should be where we try something international. And you know what we should do with Bowman Gray and what we should do with North Wilkesboro? Points races. I just think make them a points race. Hear me out. I know you can't have live pit stops, but we did Bristol Dirt. There's other times we've had like not live pit stops. So
Yeah, now that's a good shining example of picking a good race.
Because the Bristol Dirt Race was just perfect. Everyone loved it.
Yeah, but no complaints from anybody.
Yeah.
I know, but look, that was a different situation. If you're going to Bowman Gray, people aren't going to complain about it the way they did about putting dirt on a perfectly good racetrack already. So that's my 2 cents. Either that or make Wilkesboro a points race and Bowman Gray into that all-star slot. But I think you can do both, is my point. I think you can go international with something like in before the season starts, and you could still work in Bowman Gray somewhere in the schedule.
So I think on this, I think you rotate the All-Star race, and it's like a way to like give back to the roots, the short track roots of NASCAR, whether it's North Wilkesboro. I think you look at expanding to maybe like a South Boston, for example, would be a good place you restore. Because I think they do need, if you're going to have this schedule where there's not a lot of breaks, you need to have built-in kind of mini off weekends. Like, Thursday night football, the only benefit from it in football is you get 10 days off after it, theoretically, from a game, like the quote-unquote mini buy. Well, going to Bowman Gray instead of going to Daytona or going to Los Angeles in particular, it's essentially you can stay in your home and still race because it's right outside Charlotte. Like, it's a very easy drive. Same thing would be for like South Boston. Same thing for North Wilkesboro. And if you do South Boston, you kind of would assume they would put the same amount of resources in that they did it at both Bowman Gray and the Clash, and then that would be really good there. I think it would be cool to see the Clash, because I think when they did the Daytona road course for the Clash, it was actually pretty interesting. Ironically, a finish between Ryan Blaney and Chase Elliott resulted, that's how it finished, given what we just saw. I would be I would not be opposed to going to historic, and I guess mostly it would be in Europe, like historic tracks in Europe, like doing the Clash in Silverstone. Like that would be, I think, really cool. Like, just because that's such a historic event, historic racetrack, that would be cool, because I think you're risking the weather in Bowman Gray in February because it's going to be cold. And that last night was probably the limit, I would say, in terms of weather. Like, it was the 40s. Like, it wasn't bad, but it could be, as someone who's lived in that area for all his life, well, in Virginia, but that's pretty close to North Carolina, it can be very temperamental this time of year. And that's my fear about if they keep it at Bowman Gray.
I like Massie's point about the logistics, and I think that's what more the Clash is going to open up is remember, this all started with the Super Bowl, and having to move the Clash being the 2 weeks out to not overlap over the Super Bowl, and then of course you can't do it right going into Daytona. So the fact that you have this, it also gives you a window to move it even a week prior if you go overseas. Why can't you go end of January and go, the 25th or whatever it is, and go run Brazil or go do a street race in Spain? I mean, they have the running of the bulls. While they have the running of the cup cars, down there in Madrid. So it's like, again, far-fetched ideas, but are they really? Because look at what we've already been able to do. And I just think that NASCAR is going to have to go one direction. Do you say, hey, this opens the international opportunity? Yes, we're going to Mexico for a points race. I don't see points races internationally happening on the regular basis. I think this is a test run. And yeah, if it goes great, great. But I don't foresee being a norm having international races be our points races. I think that's what we're hoping the Clash becomes, or an all-star race becomes. Why can't we do that stuff? So like you said, with the logistics, you can have 2 weeks in between the Clash, or make it 3 weeks in between the Clash and Daytona to get teams to come back and things like that. So from a fan's perspective, opens that door to international fans. I mean, look at the London games in the NFL. I mean, those people are diehard, fans, and they get now 3 or 4 games when they used to just get 1. So it kind of, the NFL kind of plays that role. So I'm spewing on and on, but my point being, do you go that route, or do you hammer home the fact that we're opening these short tracks to a national stage and international stage, really, whoever, people watch the Cup Series, and you offer them almost like a Super Bowl bid. You 2 years out, let's say South Boston gets it, NASCAR's got to set aside of some money for upgrades. You get the bid, that's awarded your date, and you get to showcase your racetrack 1 year for the Cup Series and then put your name back in, and it goes around to all of, whether they're NASCAR sanctioned or not, short tracks that have produced NASCAR regional racing and, where a lot of our stars got their start. So I just feel like you kind of are at a fork in the road, and what do you want to do with it, or how do you want to manage it throughout the year?
Yeah, one of my favorite parts of when they had the Clash in LA the first year was it was the same year the Super Bowl was in LA, and it worked perfectly. Like, if you're going to open to new fans, especially if Fox, like this year, has the Super Bowl, or NBC, who are your broadcast partners, have the Super Bowl, it's kind of a cool opportunity, especially Fox, because they're going to air it, and this is from the TV side. And, I think you can expose a new audience because there's people already there. There's a ton of people there. And if you want to do the stadium shows like that again, like obviously you can't do in New Orleans, you can't do the Superdome, but you could probably figure something out in that Mississippi area. Like that could be something too they look at. It's just, there's a lot of different avenues to this. I will give NASCAR a lot of credit. They are getting creative with the Clash. I do fear that it needs to most likely be in warmer environments, since why they picked LA, and it could result in, the racing could get affected, because I was at a Martinsville race where it was really cold, and it poo-pooed the racing, and that is a fear that we can have. Like Chris, you can answer this first. Like, ultimately, would you rather have the Clash rotate or be at one place for a 3-year increment, or rotate every year and go to places all across the East Coast or across the country, and then maybe internationally when the time comes?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer. I think it's obviously been nice to have something logistically for a 2 or 3 year span, so you kind of know what to expect. You can fix maybe issues that happened in year one. The only thing I don't like is it kind of loses that big event luster. And yes, the last year of the Clash at the Coliseum was interrupted because of the rainstorm, and we had to move it up a day. It really killed attendance and really kind of left a sour taste in our mouths, even though it's not anyone's fault except for Mother Nature. But I do like the fact that there was so much hype because we've never done this at Bowman Gray. We didn't know what to expect. The fans embraced it, and it was this huge event that we put on. Now, when we go back next year, okay, we know what to expect. We know what it's going to be like. Yes, it's still cool, absolutely, but it doesn't have that first, inaugural kind of feel where you could just throw out all the stops at it, because now it's going to be like, oh, I've seen that before. Oh, the Musco Lighting Show, oh, yeah, they do that every year. Well, like, I kind of miss that newness of the event. So for me, I guess for a personal reason, I'd like to see it move around each year. Now, it doesn't have to necessarily be, a warm weather climate. Yes, you mentioned about LA. Also, that was also to get the West Coast fans involved, because we're losing, Los Fontana. So we don't have presence out there. So that was kind of the biggest reason. I don't think it was necessarily the weather, but you do have a good point. It's going to drive some fans to be like, oh, do I really want to sit, at South Boston Speedway in February? But again, it shows that it works, and nobody was scared to go to the Madhouse when it was 30 degrees, which was the low on Sunday night. Yeah, it was cold. Yeah, it was miserable from that standpoint, but people didn't care. Those people were sitting drinking beer for 5 hours before the thing even started. So I think when you look at that, I like the newness of it. The prestige of a new event just makes it a little bit more special. And why not? Because it is an exhibition race. We're not needing to build a notebook for, our car sets for next year to, whatever. It's like, who cares? This is a special one-off kind of thing. Why not make it special where you rotate it year after year?
Maybe you partner with, the Pro Bowl is the same day, and the Pro Bowl doesn't matter anymore. And, Bowman Gray is also a football field. So you do like a half Pro Bowl, half Clash event. I'm just saying.
You're asking for all sorts of conflicting issues, especially with broadcasts, with Fox and this and that. And they do such a good job cross-promoting, right? Like when the NFC Championship game was on Fox, what was what were running on the commercials? It was Daytona 500 previews and the Clash and stuff like that. Like when you have it at both at the same time that just kind of gets convoluted, in my opinion.
Yeah, that would never happen. That was more of a joke. But
Yeah.
Anyone else got something about this?
Well,
Hey, did we
do
stump Dalton and Michael or what?
Well, I got one more thought, but we should move on. But I guess I'll make it fast. And Massie, I guess if you want to have any comments, go ahead. But I do want to say, Chris, you said it earlier about, and Massie, you said it too, regarding a foreign, like an international race. And it should be at the beginning of the year because of logistical issues. And I guess I agree with that. That does make sense. You know, you can't go to a place like Mexico works because it's North America, but you can't go to a place like Silverstone, like Trey suggested, in the middle of the season. So, I mean, here's my suggestion. As they say in Mexico, porque no las dos. Do you really need to have the Clash be the international race, or maybe we can have another exhibition event? I seem to recall there was a very international country that we used to go to in a exhibition event other than the Clash, other than the All-Star race. Japan, of course, in the late 90s, and that was neither. And it still worked. Now, I know that it would be a giant pain in the butt for a lot of drivers and teams money-wise. Maybe they don't all have to be there, but obviously that's something that we have to get worked out, but it is possible. That is something that I feel like could be worked on. Massie, why don't you go ahead, give us your final thoughts, and we can move on.
Well, I was just going to say, I keep hearing you guys say, like, far-fetched ideas and, like, that'll never happen. And just remember, if you'd said in, like, 2018, hey, let's have a race at Bowman Gray. Let's have a race at North Wilkesboro. Let's have racing at Rockingham again. Then everyone would have said, that's a far-fetched idea. Even like racing in the Coliseum, in the LA Coliseum.
Streets of Chicago.
Streets of Chicago,
racing in Mexico.
Mexico, like all these just, a handful of years ago. Not even that long. We're so far-fetched that, I feel like the sky's the limit on what you could throw out there now, and it could actually be an idea that maybe could work. which is all to say that the points race at Bowman Gray will completely work. We need another short track.
I hope everything we said that was far-fetched ends up happening, because I think that's, like you said, the trajectory. It's just funny that you're right, that you look back and you're like, yeah, we would have been crazy if we said that 5 years ago. But look at us
race
now.
In Abu Dhabi. It's coming.
I'd like to go visit there. I wouldn't mind that. I'd like to go visit.
All right. Well, maybe for the final time this season, for this year, when Chris is doing a post-race interview, during while he's with MRN, he's going to hear my car was as fast as Xfinity 10G, because this will be the final season of the Xfinity series. I thought that was pretty good. I thought that was a good transition. Just
not bad.
But it was announced today that Xfinity is renewing its premier partnership with NASCAR, but they are, after 2025, will not be the Xfinity series. So people got excited. Maybe another premier partner will come back as the title sponsor, kind of like Craftman did with the Truck Series. But it raises a question. I think this is a two-part conversation. First, thoughts on the Xfinity series not becoming the Xfinity series anymore, and then we'll talk about the new initiative that Xfinity is doing with the actual points, which is we sort of talk about F1. It's very F1 like. Massie, you want to go first on this?
Yeah, I'll just say first off, like, Xfinity has been and will continue to be an incredible partner for NASCAR. And what they've done with that series, I think, has been incredible. It's been, it's continuously some of the best races you'll see every single weekend. And I know Xfinity itself has nothing to do with the racing product, but like the way they've marketed it and all that, like it's been so cool. I just wish that they had never dropped, back in the day when Busch started sponsoring it, it was called the Busch Grand National Series. I wish it had never dropped the Grand National part, because now it gets real confusing as to what to call the series. Because you're like, if I'm talking about a race from the 90s, do I call it the Busch race? Do I call it the Xfinity race? And now we're going to have probably another name in there to add to that. So like trucks, we call it trucks. It was going through all those different sponsors: Camping World, Craftsman, Gander, and you can still just say the truck race shorthand. And now you got the Cup Series. So I wish it had some kind of like identity. I hope that that's what they do with it going into next year, is add that. But yeah, I'll miss calling it the Xfinity Series for sure. And just some of the great programs they did, like the Dash for Cash, which I don't know, maybe that'll continue with the new sponsor. But
I think they did it with Nationwide too. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, they did. They did.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you think about it, Chris?
No, I mean, you hate to see things go away. Like, I know Xfinity's getting back as far as NASCAR as a whole sponsorship, but anytime you lose a partner like that as an entitlement sponsor, just like any sponsor, it's not necessarily a good thing. You always hate to see that kind of stuff happen, but I think it shows whoever is next has big shoes to fill. Because like you mentioned, Mike, like the racing has been great, but the way they marketed things, the different ingenuity in terms of the way they're able to reward drivers or add incentives, just kind of, I think that kind of opens the door for like, okay, whoever's next has to set the bar even higher. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's going to be tough to not call it the Xfinity Series. I wasn't around for really maybe the tail end of the Busch Series, but more my memory has been with Nationwide and then obviously Xfinity. So, but you're right. There needs to be an identifier in there that no matter what the sponsor is, because it won't be the last time that we have a entitlement sponsor change, especially in that series. They're going to have something to make it easier, not even on the fans, but heck, us broadcasters, because when we reference stuff in the races, we have to think, wait, was it Busch? Was it Xfinity? Was it? We sound idiots sometimes when I say it wrong. So, yeah, I mean, huge thanks to Xfinity. I think it's awesome. I'm a sucker. I love the fact when the drivers have to throw in fast as Xfinity 10G, because I know it rewards the PR folks that work extra hard to make sure those drivers are where they need to be. So I always that they say it, or I try to lead them in an interview to make sure that they say it so that they can reward their PR rep. But no, it's all good fun. But yeah, thanks Xfinity. I know they're going to be around for a while, but it'll be interesting to see though who takes that spot and who's able to, I guess, maximize that opportunity.
Well, my internet is as fast as Xfinity 10G since I have Xfinity. So hopefully if they hear this, maybe they'll give me a discount each month. Because I use Xfinity.
You never know.
I do use Xfinity 10G to watch the Xfinity Series each week because I have internet TV. So Dalton, what do you think about the end, or how should the Xfinity Series maybe pivot from here?
I want to take you guys back. I really want to say it's about 3 years ago, 2022, when the Camping World Truck Series, correct me if I'm wrong, I might have the year wrong, I'm not sure. I want to say it was 2022, the Camping World Truck Series. Camping World was leaving, and we needed to figure out in NASCAR, and everyone was wondering, oh, geez, now we're losing another entitlement sponsor. Who's gonna come in and fill in that slot? And lo and behold, it was our old friend Craftsman Tools. And everyone rejoiced because it was like, oh my gosh, it's like the old times. It's so great to see Craftsman come back. Wouldn't it be just hilarious? Okay, let's just put this out there. Wouldn't it just be hilarious if Xfinity, a title or a what do we call it?
Premier sponsor.
Premier sponsor. Thank you. Their premier sponsor goes away, and now they're continuing their premier sponsorship, their premier partnership. But then another premier partnership comes back. Busch Beer, Anheuser-Busch comes in and decides to re-sponsor that series. I still know people, Massie is one of them. I know people today who still call it the Busch Series because that was the iconic name for it for all this time. I think that'd be so cool if they did come back. I'm not saying it will. Obviously, I mean, who knows what's going to happen right now. I agree that we do need another entitlement sponsor, and I agree with Massie that we should call it the Grand National Series again. But I think it'd be really cool if something like that came back. I don't think this is cause for alarm because Xfinity is sticking around, obviously, and they've been a great partner. but I do believe that there is room. It's not going to be doom and gloom. I think I'm optimistic about this. I think it's going to be something big.
I'll jump in real quick. One rumor that has been circulating for the past several years,
Rumor has it.
won't die, is that Xfinity and ARCA might merge someday. And I have no evidence to support that.
The
But it's a rumor
Menards
that won't
ARCA
die.
Like
Grand
the
National Series.
series or the sponsor, or like Xfinity and Menards. What do you
Like the series themselves would merge into something. I don't know.
The NASCAR ARCA Xfinity Menards Busch Cup Series.
Yeah.
Presented by Geico.
Bushy McBush series. That's what it should be called.
But it might not ever happen. But just saying that's a rumor
That's out there.
It is out there.
It will. I'll add one more note, and then Massie, I'll go back to you about the other part of this deal that was kind of interesting, or what was announced a part of this new Xfinity deal, renew sponsorship. Is as I've stated a couple times, the Xfinity series has arguably the most access to eyeballs that any series does because it's on basic cable. It's Massie finally figured out how it works, but it's on the bunny ears. It's on your antenna. The CW is an antenna channel. It's free, and it will be interesting to see. I don't think it's going to rate better than the Cup Series because of the establishment, but it does have a lot of access. So I think there is an opportunity, even for a new sponsor, which that could be cool to come in. So I think there is a way to find its identity. It is proven that this series, whether it was the Busch Series or the Nationwide Series or the Xfinity Series, has been able to mold. So Massie, there is another part of this that was announced today, and you wanted to talk about that?
Yeah, the secondary part of that announcement which I don't know, it's not lesser than an announcement. I think it's pretty cool. Is that they're going to do a fastest lap thing, and they already do. Like on the broadcast, you'll see so and so has the Xfinity fastest lap, but now it's not just bragging rights. It's actually going to count for something, and you're going to get a point out of it. And I think that's pretty cool. Like, I like in-race bonuses where it's just something else, a race within a race that you throw in there. Like the stages now, like back in the day, you had the halfway bonus, leading the most laps was a bonus back in the day. And I'd love to see that one come back. But I think it's really cool to see, this extra thing where, hey, maybe I have no shot at the win, but I'm going to come in and take some fresh tires and run some pole laps, to try to get myself an extra point here. And Brian Mapes with Xfinity pointed out that it could have come into play at the Martinsville race, the Cup race, because Christopher Bell had the fastest lap at Vegas. And, one more point for him would have been huge in that battle between him and Byron at Martinsville. So, but what do you think about this whole deal, Dalton?
I seem to recall it was 2020 when during the whole COVID process, and they weren't doing qualifying, and I remember they were doing it based off this crazy algorithm that they had in place, and one of the biggest pieces of that algorithm was the fastest lap during the race. And then more specifically, I remember a race at Talladega, I think it was Talladega, where Brad Keselowski did some crazy drafting stuff. Like he dropped back the lap prior and he wanted to increase speed. He timed it just right to where he was still in the slipstream, still in the draft, and he increased speed far enough to where he wasn't held up by anybody and he got the fastest lap of the race because he was trying to do it. I'm really curious to see that occur again, especially during like the playoffs, maybe when we have a super speedway race during the playoffs. Somebody's
round of 8.
Round of 8. Like somebody's trying to get that extra point. And to Massie, like Massie said, if any of you guys watch F1, like guys who are maybe 20 seconds behind the leader or something, or they have a 20-second gap to the car behind, they'll come in and pit to get the freshest tires and try to get the fastest lap that way and get that extra point because they have the same rules. So I think it would be very interesting. We saw last year during the playoffs, a single point decide everything. Christopher Bell, William Byron immediately comes to mind at Martinsville. So there is a possibility that could be a really big difference when it comes to the playoffs. Any chance we get, and like what Massie said, in race bonuses, any chance we get to kind of mix things up based off of performance and skill and not like luck, maybe, like, I think that's a great idea. Chris, I'd love to hear you're way more smart. You're smarter than all of us.
How about that?
We're professional.
I mean, no, I mean, you both made really good points, and it comes to mind too. Actually, talking with Blaney after Sunday, it's why not a hard charger award, right? Like we have it in most of the grassroots level, especially for myself coming from dirt track racing. There was always a hard charger award. Who passed the most cars? Heck, during the season, I mean, USAC does it. They have a passing master award where they calculate how many cars you've passed all year long, every championship point event, and that winner gets a monetary bonus or it's just monetary. But I mean, you could do whatever you want with it. So I agree. In-race incentives are another way to keep the fans engaged. But I'm, as a pit road reporter, man, you do that fast lap board now, you're going to see strategies change. Like you were talking about putting new tires on if you're kind of out of the mix for the win. Why not go for it and get an extra point? And, with different tire allocations now starting to go down at some of the racetracks, it could be interesting to see how much do people care about that extra point. And like you said, with the fact that it did come down to 1 point between Bell and Byron, it is a factor and it is going to be huge. So I'm interested to see. I'd be curious. I know it just came out to kind of get – I wish it was announced, honestly, before the Clash because I would love to talk to some of the crew chiefs about it. But I really do think that for some it would be a strategy play for sure. And another element for us on pit road to try to keep a hold of is what are people doing differently to get that award. But I'd be curious to see if we don't get more in-race incentives like the hard charger or something like that. Because, again, like we about the winners all the time of these races, but the biggest story out of the Clash was the fact Ryan Blaney went dead last again and almost won 2 years in a row. Like, dude got to pass race cars, and you should get an award for that, in my opinion. So I kind of like it, but yeah, I'm thrilled to see kind of where this goes and how it plays out in the regular season and the playoffs.
Yeah, I wonder if NASCAR's floating this because they talked about, they're not doing big changes in 25 in the playoffs, which we've talked about here on this podcast a lot. And possible major changes in 26. And this is something where, one, it makes money for them because, Xfinity is sponsoring it. But it's a way to float the idea of maybe they keep the winning in the playoff format. But if you increase chances to earn points throughout the race, then it still kind of incentivizes you being consistently good throughout the event or throughout the season, which is kind of where you're going to find, I think, the balance that fans and NASCAR probably want with the winning in format and valuing the regular season to whatever degree you feel is right. But you have this fastest lap. Typically, if you get the fastest lap at most of the tracks, maybe outside of like Daytona or Talladega, you're going to have a really good race car. And that means you were really good in the race. And that could mean maybe you're fourth or something, and then you pit to get the fastest lap to balance it out. Like, it's going to be interesting to see the strategy and like who has the most throughout the season. Because my assumption is the person who has the most throughout the season is probably going to make the championship 4 because that's the most amount of points, especially come the playoff time. So that's something to shake out. All right. In a little over, I guess, a week from tomorrow, we'll have qualifying for the Daytona 500. So we're back. We are back. And then Thursday will be the duels. And Dalton, I'm setting you up. This is going to be a very interesting duel. Duels, because there's 2.
Yes. Okay. All right. Okay, gotta rack my brain because we select topics before this, and we got a little mixed up along the way.
Trey Lyle is a little rusty at hosting happy hour, and may or may not have read the wrong notes. Got 2 names slipped.
It's all good. It's all good because actually I think I like this topic more because you're absolutely right. Yeah, I think these are going to be the most interesting duels we've had, I would argue, since 2015. Why is that? Because this is going to be the largest entry list that we've had since 2015, not just the next gen car, but since before that as well. And obviously that being because of the charter agreements, but I digress. I mean, we already have 45 confirmed entries in this year's Daytona 500. That is 9 open cars that are going to be competing over 4 positions. Most of those guys are going to go home disappointed. Most of those guys are going to go home. I mean, and not to mention, we have Junior Motorsports making their first entry as well. That's a big one right there. Elio Castroneves, although Elio's confirmed to be in, so
he's sort of locked in.
He's kind of locked in. I mean, but it's still a big story, right?
Tricon, going into the Cup Series.
Tricon coming back, Martin Truex Jr.
Cole Pern with him, like that's the big
as
thing.
well. Jimmy Johnson always going to be a big story. Like, so this is probably going to be the most interesting duels that we've had in a while. I'm very excited to see. I really want to hear your guys' take on it. Chris, would love to hear your take on it. I assume you're going to be following that pretty closely as well.
Yeah, we actually had a production meeting, one of a couple leading into Speed Weeks yesterday, kind of talk about, what are some of the biggest things we're looking for. And Dalton, you hit the nail on the head. I think everybody was really excited to see the guys that have to race their way in. You take Elio aside, but even for Elio, I mean, just to see what he does in the draft. I mean, like, I remember talking to him at the Indy 500 last year when, rumors were talking about him, like he said on SRX that he wanted to get a ride to the Daytona 500. He was like, I want to do it because it is completely different than anything I've ever done. And you have to train your brain a lot differently than what you do behind the wheel of an Indy car. Even if it was a horse race in a stock car, Daytona and Talladega are so out of everyone that has never done its kind of mind frame as a race car driver. So Elio's in for the race, but the duel is going to be our first look to see what he actually can do. But you're right, the entry list. I mean, you look at the names that actually could go home, and obviously with this Junior Motorsports story too. There's no reason that car not only won't make the show or will make the show, but can't run top 10 because that's a Hendrick Motorsports entry too. I mean, it's Junior Motorsports, but that car's coming out of Hendrick Motorsports, and we know what they can qualifying and also what they can do during the race. So there's plenty of different storylines, and then you just look at the stories of guys trying to make it the first time, and then the Cole Pern and Martin Truex Jr. storyline. Yeah, it's a nice return for Cole and Martin to be together. I know it's, fresh. Martin just retired, a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, but the fact that he's going to come back and have to mix it up, and then Jimmy Johnson, like, I'm more concerned about him, and I'm going to keep my focus on him because he took over now majority ownership of Legacy Motor Club. He's got his eggs in that basket. He still wants to drive, but it's like, I just, you have a 7-time Cup Series champion. How do we remember Jimmy? And not calling this a eulogy, but how do you remember Jimmy as a driver? And we've started to lose that a little bit over the last year and a half because Jimmy hasn't performed when he's been in the car. I mean, I think of Phoenix walking down championship weekend. I mean, we've got media covering the playoff guys. We've got, media all over the different drivers. Jimmy Johnson's walking up pit road and nobody bats an eyelash. Not one fan or one person with a hot pass goes up to Jimmy and gets a picture or an autograph. That just shocked the heck out of me. And so I'm like, man, I really hope that this turns around for Jimmy. He's able to learn something, not only for himself, but for the team. And I hope that, he can do well when it comes to the duels and trying to get the car in the race. So, yeah, there's a lot to look forward to. I'm interested in, usually qualifying I'm really in tune with because I love just that battle for 100th of a second and come down the driver. But man, those duels, they're going to probably be some of the best duels that we would have seen, like you said, in quite some time.
Yeah, you talk about Justin Allgaier. He's, of course, our guest on Bringing the Heat this week. Dalton had a really cool conversation with him about this entry, but he's got Greg Eyes as his crew chief.
Yeah.
He is, I believe, what is it, like 4 straight front row appearances with Bowman before he retired. Like, he is built. We know he can build a fast race car.
Talladega win with Dale Jr.
Yeah, you can qualify. Like, just about qualifying itself. Like, he can build a fast race car to go one lap around Daytona. I am interested. Like, Ilio is like definitely really cool just because, I mean, you could argue he's the most like next to Jimmy, he's the most accomplished race car driver in the race. I mean, he's won the biggest race of the year, the biggest race in the world 4 times. Like, very few people on this planet. And of course, he's better than AJ Foyt, Mike Neff.
Wow.
That's not it.
All right.
I'm making it. That's an inside.
Cancel this man. Cancel this man.
That's inside joke.
Mike Neff is going to get a text from during his hangover tomorrow morning, and he's going to be like, Trey Lyle said what?
That was just a nice little jab at our good pal Mr. Mike Neff, who's wasting away in Margaritaville and Myrtle Beach. But I think the Truex entry is awesome just because, you know, it's with Cole Pern. But you think about it, like, Chandler Smith is a guy who kind of got wasted aside, you know, with all these changes. And, you know, he's not back at Gibbs despite the fact he was really good there. And he got this ride with Front Row, and he's going to be with MBM. And, you know, that was supposed to be the Mike Wallace ride, which we talked about. But he could make a point. Beard Motorsports always brings a really good car, and I think Anthony Alfredo does a really good job in it. And it, you know, BJ McLeod, I think, is going to have a really fast race car. Like, I would not be shocked. You know, Jimmy was so close to missing it. Was it last year? Like, I remember they cut to the radio, and it's like, I need Eric to come back to me. Like, you know, talking about Eric Jones, like he's, you know, because Jimmy wasn't going to be locked in. So it's
almost lost to NY Racing.
Yeah, which
will be back, by the way.
So
and that brings up another point too. With all these guys trying to race their way in, who works with who? You know, we used to talk about, like, you have one or two, maybe one in each duel that is kind of an outlier that has to figure out a way to get in the race, or maybe 2 per duel. But if you're going to have 4 or 5 trying to race their way in, I mean, holy cow. Like, first of all, if you're a Cup Series regular, besides manufacturer alliances, like, you know, you don't know how these guys race, half of them. I mean, obviously, you know, Mark Truex Jr. and Jimmy Johnson, but how do you know Elliott is going to be a pusher or somebody that you can, you know, push behind? How will he be able to handle the draft? That's what's going to be fascinating. How these guys try to figure it out, and who can prove that they're the one to go with when the time matters.
Yeah. I'm kind of scared for Jimmy Johnson, for real. Like, I have this bad feeling he's going to end up missing it just because, like you guys said, there's so many good competitors. And what always seems to happen is in one of the duels, you know, one duel will be pretty tame and it'll be pretty straight up. The other one, you'll think you know who's going to make it. And then with like 10 to go, there's going to be a wreck. And it's going to take out somebody that was trying to make the race. And who was it? Was it Connor Daly that like just limped his way into it?
Yeah,
that was after his car didn't even run when he was qualifying. Remember that? He was all over the place.
I think it was JJ Yaley who like lost it on the last lap or something, like, and nobody was paying attention.
Yeah.
Go
ahead, Trey.
Go ahead. I was just gonna say, like, it's weird. Like, if I had to, like, bet, quote unquote, bet on like who will make it in qualifying, like, I feel pretty confident it's going to be Allgaier and Truex, like, just because of, like, it's a 5th Hendrick and Joe Gibbs car. Like, that's, and it's also the people in the pit box, like Greg Ives, an elite crew chief at qualifying at Daytona, and then Cole Pern, an elite crew chief just in general. And so it's like, I feel pretty good in that, but I could be wrong because, like, one mistake, or like what happened to Chandler Smith where when he was with Colleague, and, you know, I think they have practice this year, so before qualifying, so they changed that. But like in years past, it was your first lap at Daytona was that first qualifying lap. Well, what if something is not right on the car? Like, that could happen. That easily could happen here. So a lot of factors go into it. All right. we are running out of time for Chris, so we need to get to our last topic. We do not want
Please
to waste.
forgive us, Chris. We're going to rush this because we don't want to get yelled at by our overlord, Tom Bowles.
So,
You're good. You're good.
and we're gonna have a very long bonus segment, so we need to get through this. So, obviously, at the start of the season, when you know nothing, you make championship predictions that you know are gonna be 1,000% right. That's the way to do it. That's why everyone does this every year in sports.
I'm pretty sure Massie picked Joey Logano last year, though, didn't he?
I think I did.
Yeah, even your Joey Logano.
Even your Joe. Yes, we made that joke like 6,000 times. Well, guess what? He's not going to pick Joey Logano this year because it's an odd year. So I will. Chris, you can go first on this one. You can give us as much or as little as you want because we don't. We're springing this on you. Your championship prediction. If you just want to give one driver, you want to give a champ 4, go ahead. We will not hold you to it because trust me, we will all change. Unlike Dalton, because I know who he's picking.
Well, how about this? I won't give you a champ 4. I'm still a little undecided about a couple. I just started thinking about this earlier today, but I'll give you a reason that 2 drivers should be at least in the championship 4, if not one of the 2 hoisting the cup after it's over. One of those being Christopher Bell. Having known Christopher Bell for quite some time now, personally, and getting to obviously cover him doing the Chili Bowl and things like that, after Martinsville last year was a different Christopher Bell that I've seen in recent years. And that feeling, despite all the success he had in the offseason, despite all the time removed from that, has not been lost on him. He is still fired up about what happened and honestly feeling like he had a championship taken away because he felt like Phoenix, they had probably the best package going into that race, and he was strong in that race as well. So he's fired up about it. And Christopher Bell is the kind of guy who, when he's got an extra little oomph, a little light underneath his shorts, he's going to perform. So there is no doubt in my mind that Christopher Bell will make it or won't make it. I mean, he will make it back to the championship 4, and I honestly think is a deserving champion, him and Adam Stevens. They've developed such a close relationship over the last several years, and even Adam was hurt about what happened at Martinsville. So Christopher Bell is going to be one of my picks. And then the other driver is going to be William Byron. Again, nothing flashy about William, but he is so consistent. He and Rudy Fugle. And Rudy is one of my go-to crew chiefs in the garage when it comes to what's going on this weekend or what do you think about this or the strategies. And I remember Phoenix, too. They felt like they had one slip away. And William and Rudy have just – there's something about that connection, too, that it's like that's not going to be the only time that they're going to battle for a championship. They're going to go on a run here. I think you're going to see him win at least 4 races and go on to contend for the championship. So if I'm going to have, I know this is kind of weird. It's not one champion. It's not a championship 4, but Christopher Bell and William Byron are going to be my 2 that it's going to come down between them and then obviously two more drivers, but both of them deserving champions.
Massie.
Oh.
I left them all speechless.
I was hoping you wouldn't go to me next because I'm still trying to figure out.
Okay, fine. I'll go to Dalton. Okay, I can. I was gonna skip you for now. I was giving you an out.
I'll do it. So it's so tempting to just be like, well, Penske's gonna win another championship, right? Because every year Phoenix is just.
I was about to say I'm tempted to just be like, all right, so 3 of them are Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, and Austin Cindric, and then I
was gonna say my honorable mention was Blaney, but I didn't want to punt the obvious. But go ahead.
Right. Yeah.
I just don't trust him in all the other treks. Just.
I think in sports in general, you hear about 3-peats. You don't really hear about 4-peats.
And a 3-peat's not going to happen this Sunday. Go Birds!
But yeah, I know he's on the dark side. So I think the Penske trend comes to an end finally. I think Blaney will make the championship 4, but I think a Hendrick car will win the championship. I'm trying to decide which one I want to go with. Kyle Larson is too good of a driver to only have one championship. And it's been a couple years now since he won that one championship. So I think it is time for him to get number 2. So I'm going to go out on a huge ledge and pick Kyle Larson to win the championship.
Remember, last time he won the Chili Bowl was 2021, and that was his championship year. So he won it in he won it just this past January. So if you're into that kind of thing,
there you go. There you go.
Maddie,
I'm
unlike
all into
we did in the Chili Bowl, you can't ride the wall to a win. So,
but I'll give you 2 other names too. Chase Elliott, I think, will be in the championship 4. I think he'll have a big bounce back season. I'm not just saying that because he won on Sunday, Dalton. I think he'll have a good one in general because he was so consistent at the end of last season. And lastly, you got to throw Gibbs Carr in there. I think Denny will make the championship 4 again, just because he's got a new crew chief. He usually does pretty well his first year with a new crew chief.
Dalton, why is Chris Buescher going to win the championship?
All right, so check it out. Here's why Chris Buescher is going to win the championship. Okay, so
it's always fun having our guest on. We just throw in these inside jokes that
but
Dalton may or may not have picked Chris Buescher 2 years ago to win the championship. So we just always say he's going to pick the champ.
Yeah, it's not an inside joke this time though.
Oh, you are really going to pick him?
So
I mean,
all right.
That's not a hot take at all. But
I texted him.
Okay.
No joke. I texted him. I texted him when we were doing this. I was like, "How are you going to figure out how Chris Buescher wins the championship?" And he goes, "I'm working on it."
He asked me this morning, or no? Did you mention Chris Buescher this morning?
I didn't. I said we're going to save your championship pick. It might be a driver. That's not.
Oh yeah, it was like you already knew. Yeah. So look, okay. I know it's a joke. I'll give some other names too, like Massie did. I'll give a championship 4, but I do actually genuinely believe, make fun of me all you want, I do actually believe that Chris Buescher is going to be one of those guys in the championship 4. He has been consistent for the last 2 years. Last year wasn't that fantastic, but 2023 was a great year for him. And RFK Racing did well last year also. They got a win with Brad Keselowski as well. So and
yeah, 2. Don't forget, Buescher won right after the playoffs started.
Yeah.
He won.
2 wins total. Yeah, like
he was 3 inches, not even, from winning another one.
Yeah, and he would have been in the playoffs if that didn't happen. But I did. Look, I know it's really not fair to judge the Clash as like a reason, as like take a Clash results as a grain of salt. But he did look good during the Clash. I mean, when the qualifying happened, when the heats occurred, Chris Buescher was up there among the Kyle Larsons, the Chase Elliott's, the Christopher Bells, the Tyler Reddicks, like the guys Denny Hamlin, the guys that run up front. He was one of those guys that was up there. So I don't think that it's a joke anymore to say that Chris Buescher is a guy that you can pick to be among one of the front runners. Now, that said, yeah, sure, I'll pick him as the championship just for the sake of the joke. But and if I'm right, if he does win the championship, I'll look like a genius. But at the same time, I think championship 4, I think Massie's got a good point with Kyle Larson. I'm going to pick Kyle Larson to make the championship 4 every single year that he's alive, every single year that he's racing in the Cup Series. I'm sorry, it's just going to happen. But I do think this is the year that Chase Elliott's going to make a big comeback as well. I said earlier on Trey's show that I feel like it was a little bit too early. I still do. That said, last year, wasn't that great of a year for him, but he does have the momentum now coming off the Clash, and he's got something to prove a little bit. So there's that as well. And I also like Chris's pick with Christopher Bell. I think Christopher Bell is long overdue. I think he's going to make the championship 4. I think he has never been more serious about this than he has been before. He's got the drive. He's got the hunger. I even would probably say he's probably angry about what happened last year. He feels like he deserves to be in the championship 4. He's got something to prove as well. I'm surprised he's not a champion already. He'll be in there.
Yeah, you mentioned that. I will never forget, as being one of the people that were just standing there after Martinsville with him and Adam Stevens, and kind of this moment of, when are they going to call it? Should we go talk to other drivers? Should we talk? Like, they're not going to let us talk to Bell.
Yeah, I was standing next to Bell the whole time. He kept looking at me. He goes, Wilner, what's going on? I'm like, your guess is as good as mine, but I'm just sitting here waiting to figure out if this is happy or it's a sad interview.
he just looked so like, I don't want to like, he just looked so like you had like mad and sad. It was like it was someone who's just like, basically to deal with the frankly BS of the two Chevy drivers and what was going on there, and then he just makes this desperate move, what he thinks, and gets a penalty and is ultimately out of the championship four. So it's just something long term. I see your dogs are very excited about our picks. Chris,
Yeah, they won't stop.
but so I will put Bell in my championship four. I'm also putting Reddick and Larson. So give me I think the three maybe most talented guys in the Cup Series, just on raw driving ability. Like with them at their age right now, I know you could throw Kyle Busch in, but just Kyle Busch is not, I would say, in his driving prime. That's just much more of an age thing than anything else. But Reddick, Larson, and Bell, I think, are the three most raw talent drivers we have. And the fourth, I'm gonna say Blaney, because Penske has this nailed so much, and it's hard for me not to put a Penske driver in. And unfortunately, Penske's at Phoenix with the championship on the line. I'm going with the layup. I think it's going to be Ryan Blaney. It's going to be very frustrating for fans seeing Penske do it again. But Roger Penske's the best owner in motorsports. He just, he won another Rolex 24. He's in the conversation for the best owner in sports, like just sports, not just motorsports. And so all he does is win championships and win the Indy 500. So I'm going with good old Roger Penske. All right, Chris, thanks so much, man. At Chris Wilner 26, you will see him at the racetrack. Anything you want to plug before we get on out of here?
No, you guys do a great job. It's awesome to see some of you, throughout the year. Most of the time, it's usually at the care center or in the media center. But no, keep up the good work, and looking forward to a busy 2025 season. I'm not only doing MRN, this is going to be the busiest year on my MRN calendar, but then I'm also doing a few more NBC races for IMSA on off weeks from MRN. So see you at a racetrack, that's for sure.
Chris, any chance Massie and I are gonna see you at Daytona in a week?
Oh yeah, I'll be there. We leave Tuesday morning. We'll do media day and stuff, and then of course MRN has everything from first practice through the duels, qualifying, all that good stuff, and then of course we cover the ARCA Menard Series opener, and then all three national series. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Killer. We'll see you then.
Yeah,
sounds good, boys. Thanks.
Thanks
for joining. Appreciate it.
And now he's back. He was in Long John Silver's for most of this episode, and he showed up in his office for it.
The biggest Todd Gilliland fan has joined.
So,
his championship pick, Todd.
Todd Gilliland.
Hey, he made the main event in the Clash on Sunday night.
Where did he finish? I'm looking at this. Oh, that's qualifying.
So after some controversy, because Dalton and Caleb were not able to pick their teams, and Massie and I kicked Tom and Brian's ass last year in the draft, they have decided to join us for our draft. We're going to same format as last year. I copy and paste it. It's going to be 5 rounds. We're going to pick pick a driver each round, and essentially put the same scoring system as last year. So we're keeping it simple. Massie, since you are the reigning defending champion, we allowed you to have the number one, or we allowed you to pick what pick you wanted. And so you picked number 1 overall. I went second in terms of picks, and I picked second, and then Dalton will have the 3rd pick, and Caleb will go second, and it is snake style, so I get the 1st pick in the 2nd round. And then
Trey, you said you're going second.
I said I was going last. I said I picked the last pick.
No,
Caleb's going second. All right. To be clear,
Massie first. Bring it back.
Massie
fans
first.
Listening to this, comment right now about how wrong Trey is.
Massie is first. Caleb is second. Dalton is 3rd. I am 4th, and then I go first in the 2nd round. So on and so forth. All right.
Sounds good.
Any questions?
Yeah, that's great.
And do I need to remind you on the scoring system?
It's 4 people, right?
It's just points 1st through 40th. Like wherever you finish, you get it.
Yeah.
+1 for a stage win, +3 for a race win.
What about the Xfinity fastest lap?
We're not doing that. I don't know. No, we're not doing that.
Caleb, as the scorekeeper, doesn't want to do that.
I made this point system last year. I am not changing it this year.
He did make this point system. So,
What is it?
all right.
4 rounds? 5 rounds? 4 rounds?
As I said, it's 5 rounds.
5 rounds. All right.
Any questions?
I'm good.
I just pulled up basically the Daytona entry list because I have no idea. I'm gonna forget drivers, so and unfortunately I will say this now, Zane Smith it may be off my board. So
Oh no. How could you?
I'm not getting burned again. All right.
But he was doing so well at the end of the year.
He
helped you
got
with
me
your
back in
comeback.
it. I will say this, Zane Smith.
Finished
Hey.
second at the most chaotic race last year.
Zane Smith top 10 at one point in the clash. So shout out to Zane. All right. Michael Massie, you have the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah.
To recap, Brian Nolan had the number 1 pick last year. I guess it was good. He picked Ryan Blaney. But you have the number 1 pick.
The rest of Nolan's draft was not as good. Number
Brian
1 pick.
Nolan. And here, to be clear, so Brian Nolan thought these are your same drivers throughout the entire season. We are not picking new drivers each week. This is your drivers throughout the entire season. So do not pick drivers based off of Daytona. Brian Nolan.
Elio Castroneves. No,
all right, that's his pick. Lock it in.
No. Number 1 pick. I'm putting my money where my mouth was. There's a reason I wanted the number 1 pick. Same guy I just picked for the championship in our last segment. Kyle Larson. How you gonna bet against him?
I feel like that was the easiest 1-1
Yeah.
pick. I don't know how he didn't go 1 last year.
Because Brian.
No, you didn't pick Kyle Larson either.
I didn't?
No,
Oh.
you picked William Byron.
Oh yeah. Well, he was coming off a 6-win season, so
So, all right, Caleb, second pick.
Ooh, I've been going back and forth because there's 2 guys that I really want, and I don't know if I'm going to get the second guy in the second round. I think between the 2, and I'm not going to say the second guy I want, but I think I'm going to have to go with William Byron. He's been top 3 in average finish the last 2 seasons. He's kind of opposite of Logano. He's more of an odd year guy, where his better years, his better statistical years are the odd years. He was consistent 2021, had that 6-win season in 2023, and coming off of 3 wins last year. I know they all came early. I think I'm going to have to go with Byron.
Dalton, if you don't take this man first, you're not a man of your word.
I think you can wait a few rounds.
You have to take him. You have to take him. You have to take.
But do I? Do
No,
I?
you don't. But I mean, come on. If you're a man of
It's
your
not
word.
for money. It's not for money. I don't care. Yeah, Chris Buescher. Let's do it. Yeah, just put Chris Buescher as my first round pick.
Honestly, this makes me feel like one
My
time.
actual first round was going to be somebody else, but fine. I'll give in to peer pressure. You bastards.
So that reminds me of one time I convinced a guy who knew nothing about football to draft a certain Ravens kicker that I don't want to mention his name given his recent headlines for the number 1 overall pick in fantasy football.
Oh no.
Wow, you're evil.
Hey, I played a win. I had the number 2 pick. It burned me because I think I picked CMC and he got hurt all year. So I
Sounds
got
about
burned.
right.
So I'm picking Christopher Bell, who Dalton really wanted to take. And then
Yeah.
I'm picking, because I had him in my championship 4. Ooh. Will he get back? I'm going to pick Ryan Blaney.
Oh.
Because I think he's going to do really well this year. I think he's going to do well throughout the year. I wanted someone else, but he might not get back to me. But all right, Dalton.
Dalton wants Keselowski.
Yeah.
And he's doing Priest next round.
In the entire RFK, you're doing a stack. Like
That's why I'm picking Cody Ware as my second.
Lock it in. Lock it in.
That's
there
a
it is.
joke.
All right, good. Pick your pick, Caleb, quick.
Oh man.
Do you need me to share this tentative entry list with everyone so you know who you're picking?
I came prepared. I don't know.
I've got
I have
No,
the
I'm
JC
looking
page.
right now.
Yeah, that page.
Just
I'll
in
tell
case.
you what. I'm gonna go with Chase Elliott.
Ooh.
Oh man.
Man.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'll pick up a Toyota driver and go with Denny Hamlin. Seems like a pretty easy pick to make.
Denny, I don't have any sponsors. Hamlin.
Yeah. I'm gonna take a guy that I honestly thought Trey was taking, Tyler Reddick.
Yeah, I was between him and so what burned me last year is I had no championship 4 guys, and I like you had more like the playoff guys. You just kept advancing, whereas I was getting good finishes, but I ran out of playoff guys. So I was like, I feel like if I don't have a Penske guy, and I was afraid that as we're about to recap, like if Logano is going the next couple picks before I get back, I get no Penske guys. It feels like you get a Penske guy, you get a championship.
Yeah.
It was tough, but yeah, I was between him and Reddick for my
I
pick.
don't blame you.
Wait, before you make your pick, let me recap what we got so
please.
far, so I can go on. All right, Massie has Kyle Larson and Tyler Reddick. Caleb has William Byron and Denny Hamlin.
He's gonna win.
Dalton has Chris Buescher and Chase Elliott, and I have Seabell and Ryan Blaney.
These are pretty even teams, I feel like. But
Yeah,
we still got 3 more rounds.
That's
Yeah,
very
it's
nice
because
of you to
Brian's
say.
not picking. It's not like you got a bad pick in Chris Buescher. Like, come on, it's not like I picked Zane. Like I had Zane Smith last year.
Massie, make your pick.
I had Zane Smith last year and I finished second. Like you still have hope.
Chris Buescher's going to win 10 races this year and make us
You
all
watch.
look like
He's gonna
fools.
win the 500 now. He's gonna win the Daytona 500.
He could.
You watch.
All right,
And then I'm gonna text all of y'all. I'm be like, look who's laughing now.
all right. So
Massie, your next
yeah.
pick.
I'm looking at who's left of the big 3 teams. Okay. A little bit of a limb, but I think everybody kind of thinks he's gonna have a good year. Chase Briscoe.
Mother.
That was the one person I was hoping would. That was another person I was hoping to fall to me.
I think this is a bit more of a limb, but he's got a new crew chief pairing, and they look good at the Clash, and Denny Hamlin speaks really highly of him. I'm going to go with Bubba Wallace.
Ooh. Someone might be going with the Daytona strategy.
No, I promise I'm not doing that.
Bubba showed consistency last year, so that's the one thing you need to find is consistency. So, all right, Dalton, your next pick.
All right, I'm gonna go. I'm juggling around a few guys in my head right now, but I'm gonna go with the guy who I know is guaranteed to win a race this year, Shane Van Gisbergen.
Ooh,
Yeah, solid.
that's not a bad pick because you get the points from the win, and he'll make the playoffs. Well, assuming it's one of the regular season ones. So that's not a bad pick either. So I could go this guy who's still on the top team. There's 2 guys left in the top 4. I mean, no, I don't. I can't. For how much I railed on him, I cannot pick Joey Logano.
2 Penske guys.
I think at this point you can pretty much
I'm
go
going,
with whoever.
dude. I also don't want to pick another guy because of a certain coworker I have.
I know.
I immediately know who you're talking about.
His name rhymed with Guy Tibbs.
But you know what? He's gonna get a win this year. God, I hate this. I hate this. I hate this with all my heart. Give me Ty Gibbs. It's just a.
Welcome back to the Fast Lane with Ed Lane. Trey Lyle, everybody, voted for Ty Gibbs and brought him onto his team.
So I think this guy, because of rumors, it lit a fire under him at the start of the playoffs, and I think he's going to do really well. I'm going to take Alex Bowman. It's a boomer bust pick because I think you could see it fading, but there's going to be the Haley rumors all year, and it seems it lit a fire under him, and he always wins a race.
You know, I feel a little guilty that nobody's picked him yet because, yeah, you're 100% right. He was doing really well at the end of the year.
I mean, we go back before he hurt his back. He was the championship points leader a few years ago, and that kind of injuries kind of derailed his up to that win in Chicago. So I'll go Bowman. So I won't. I feel like I'm less of a hypocrite with Ty Gibbs because I don't ever say Ty Gibbs is bad. I just, one of the guys I work with picks him every week. So, Dalton, you're up.
All right. Yeah. Geez, I just feel like he's like the next logical pick. There's a couple guys that, again,
Hey, Joey Logano was Massie's last pick.
that's not who it was.
Oh no, it was not.
Even in the odd years, Logano wins races.
It was.
Yeah, he might win
Logano
like
in this-
one. I'm gonna go with Brad Keselowski.
Oh,
Brad
man.
Keselowski.
Mm-hmm. I think. Again, it's not just about wins. It's about consistency, and you can't deny that Brad Keselowski is consistent.
That is fair.
My next guy is actually pretty high on my list, and I think he's going to surprise a lot of people this year. I'm going to go with one of the Spire cars, and I'm going to go with Carson Hocevar.
Ooh, I like that.
Wow.
He's my Justin Haley or my Zane Smith this year. I said a bunch of names there.
That's not a bad pick.
I'm gonna go with in the 4th round. the last pick of the 4th round, the defending champion.
The problem was he was such
He was so
Like,
bad.
he was so bad in the regular season, he was tearing you down.
Yeah.
Like the reason I was able to come back is because of Joey Logano's struggles.
Yeah, but he took off in the playoffs. So. I feel like there's a big drop off after you get past those 3 big teams, though.
I
Maybe
agree.
a couple others, but I gotta go with Joe Logano. It's just, I feel like I'd be stupid not to.
All right, to recap the teams before we go into the final round, Hugh Combs has Kyle Larson, Tyler Reddick, Chase Briscoe, and Joey Logano. The Long John Silver's All-Star team has William Byron, Denny Hamlin, Bubba Wallace, and Carson Hocevar. Chris Buescher's fan club has Chris Buescher, Chase Elliott, SVG, and Brad Keselowski. And the Zane Smith Memorial team has Chris Rebel, Ryan Blaney, Ty Gibbs, and Alex
Zane
Bowman.
Smith Memorial Team. Did he die?
No, it's just he won't be on my team anymore.
Oh, okay.
Epic
Yeah,
team
that's
wins.
the equivalent. Sure.
I'm just so.
Oh, man.
All right.
Back to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
This last one's really tough because I kind of feel like Josh Berry's gonna have a good year in basically
Ooh,
a
there's a prediction.
car, but Ross Chastain.
Mother. He was literally like the last one that I truly wanted.
That was one. I'm shocked. It just kind of shows how
He's
bad
bad.
last year was for Ross.
He was very hit or miss.
I think if this was 2023, he would have been first round.
Yeah.
I luckily have it saved. Ross went. Actually, none of us picked Ross. No, there he is. He went in the 3rd round.
Mm.
So
I think it was the cars weren't that good last year, though. I don't think they'll bounce
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see how track.
Caleb, your turn.
Ross. Yeah. I feel like I gotta pick a Ford. That Long John Silver's car is looking pretty because Todd's been decent, but I think maybe even better. I kind of like that 4 car, Noah Gragson. He looked like the most. Sorry. I feel like he was
I
the
was like, there's
flashiest
no
Tosca
way
last
he's going to
year,
pick
so
Noah Gragson.
I did a little swerve there on you. So I will steal Noah Gragson.
are you tweaking?
I am tweaking.
Whoa!
Cody Ware's still available, Dalton.
Yeah, you're
I wonder-
right.
I hope Jello gets to do a pre-race concert at one of these.
Man. Oh, jeez. There's like 3 guys realistically that I do kind of want to pick.
I mean,
Ryan Priest.
Kyle Busch is still available.
He might
That is
he might be
true.
on the
I
list. Okay.
Hey, Austin Dillon might get you a win. Now he might not get you in the playoffs, but like he'll.
Yeah, and we did count that. We did count that as points.
There's Cindric. There's Ty Dillon.
title. Yeah, okay, Massie.
There's John Hunter Nemechek.
I'm
There's Zane Smith, Riley Herbst.
man, you guys have already named everybody I was thinking of realistically.
I mean, you could go with the road course approach again with AJ.
You know what?
Or McDowell.
You know what?
Stenhouse?
I'm gonna go with Kyle Busch.
I respect
He had
him.
some good races last year. There was some moments where he really did look like he was going to win a race, and he just kind of fell short. I think he's coming back this year angrier than ever, and an angry Kyle Busch is a fast Kyle Busch. I think he's going to win at least one race this year. So I'm going to go with KFB.
Didn't he finish second like 3 straight weeks at the
Yes.
end of the regular season?
Yes, at the end of the regular season.
And the final pick in this draft is a driver I'm very high on. I
Cody
believe it's not Cody Ware.
You
in
got a
his
spot for
talent.
Zane Smith.
It's a man who has won a championship with the team he's with. It just happened to be in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series because, psych, I'm going Zane Smith. Let's go.
I thought you were going Austin Dillon for a second.
No. Zane Smith, you think I would give up on my boy? No. Championship. He's going to make the playoffs. Boom. Let's go.
I can't believe y'all left Josh Berry out there.
Well,
I mean, can you
one
really?
of you had to take him. I was saving my last pick the entire time for Zane Smith.
You really can't believe that?
Josh
I
Berry in a 4. Remember how good Blaney was in that 21?
Yeah,
That's
remember how
Ryan
good
Yeah.
Harrison Burton was in that 21?
Do you think Josh Berry is the same talent as Harrison Burton?
Harrison Burton's got like a lot of wins in the Xfinity
I think
series.
more Xfinity.
He's got more Cup Series wins than Josh Berry does. So-
Yeah.
And Josh Berry drove for Stewart Haas Racing
Wow.
in the 4-car.
Wow. I mean, Harvick was going winless in that car at the end.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
So yeah,
I'm excited.
it's not the Zane Smith Memorial Team. It's just
the Zane Smith team.
I don't know. I have to think of it. I got good team names for you guys. I just have to think of a
Zane
good one
Smith
for mine.
fan club.
What was my name?
But we already have the Chris Buescher fan club. Your team name is just Hugh Combs.
The Zane Smith
then
Resurrection.
We have the Zane Smith Revenge Tour. So
Revenge of Zane Smith. His logo is going to be like a picture of Zane Smith with like red glowing eyes. I'll make it happen.
all right, so that will do it for this episode of Happy Hour. Dalton and Massie are going to be in Daytona at Pit Lane CBT at M_Massie22. They will also have articles throughout the week. Caleb has Stock Car Scoop.
I also have 4 burning questions this year, so check in.
Yeah, that's it. I knew you had an article. I just couldn't remember it.
4BQ.
He's now the host of Stock Car Scoop. Next on the podcast feed is that guy that we didn't want to mention, Brian Nolan. Of course, Bringing Heat with Brian Nolan is back. So he will have a 2-part conversation that Dalton had with Justin Allgaier plus more. And that will do it for this episode of Happy Hour. Everyone have a great night.